What's going on, guys? It's Stock Picks by Tim, and I've got a couple things to update you with. First of all, we've got our GDP numbers. I'm going to go into that. I've also got a clip to give you guys a little more context here, and we're also just going to quickly see what the market's doing. How is the market reacting to what's going on today? So consider hitting the like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. I put out daily videos. Sometimes it's crypto, sometimes it's stocks, sometimes it's just market updates. So first off, I've got this clip to show you guys, and then we're going to get right on with it. So let's roll the clip.
Jerome Powell is acknowledging that inflation remains way too high and more work is needed to get it back under control. Powell even said that the Fed, quote, wouldn't hesitate to make an even bigger move if one is necessary. But the next Fed meeting isn't for 8 weeks, and that is an eternity in today's economy. And so Powell left himself plenty of wiggle room to see how the economy evolves, what happens to jobs, what happens to inflation, what's going on in financial markets. And what's interesting is that the Fed is conceding that they are ramping up interest rates at a time when the economic environment is darkening, right? The Fed actually, in their statement, they downgraded their view of the economy. They pointed to softening indicators. And during the press conference, Powell weighed in on the question that's on everyone's minds right now. Is a recession coming, or are we already in one?
I do not think the U.S. is currently in a recession. And the reason is there are just too many areas of the economy that are performing too well. And of course, I would point to the labor market in particular. As I mentioned, it's true that growth is slowing for reasons that we understand. Really, the growth was extraordinarily high last year, 5.5%. We would have expected growth to slow.
So Powell stressed that they're not trying to start a recession, and he expressed continued confidence that they could pull this off. They could tame inflation without sinking the economy, but he also conceded that that job has gotten harder and it may continue to get harder.
And we just had our second quarter GDP data released, and it's actually negative 2%. So it is the second quarter in a row of negative GDP growth. Now, if you guys didn't know, in '74, an economist named Julius Shiskin came up with a few rules to define a recession. And basically the most popular was 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. And this definition of a recession became the standard. The National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER, has their own definition of a recession. And that's basically a significant decline in activity spread across the economy. And this lasts more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. So essentially this article says that, this definition is obviously much more flexible for determining what a recession is, but I'll leave you guys this article below because it's really interesting. It actually goes into what causes recessions, the difference between a recession and a depression, and also how long recessions typically last. But looking at today's GDP report, you'll see consumer spending rose 1%, home construction dropped 14%, inventories dropped by 2 percentage points, and that's year over year. Now, companies still added inventories, however, much slower than the first quarter. Business construction dropped by nearly 12%. Federal government spending supposedly dropped 3.2%. However, defense spending grew 2.5% for military aid going to Ukraine. And so far, the market is taking this relatively well. It seems like this is somewhat priced in, and I think that most people do think we are in a very light recession. And considering how much stocks have already dropped, this really isn't that surprising of a reaction to me. However, that being said, I would not be surprised to see a pretty red day tomorrow, being that we've just had a pretty decent week, honestly. Definitely interesting to see. I think now that this data is out, the market is a little less worried. Yes, we have our second quarter of a negative GDP. Some would say we're officially in a recession here. However, I think most of the market expected this to happen, and the market can somewhat breathe a sigh of relief knowing that this data is behind us now. But let me know what you guys think about these numbers. What do you think about the data that we just got, and how are you feeling about the current state of the economy? Let me know in the comments below, guys. Thanks as always, and take it easy.